Joe, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us about how you live stream. And we're going to keep this really simple. All I'm looking to share with people is, first of all, how you have been live streaming. And secondly, what did you need to do that? I mean, maybe we'll get on to if there's been any issues or whatever, which is helpful for people to hear. But tell us a bit about how you do it.
Oh, thanks, Sam. It's great to be chatting this morning. I mean, in some ways, we sort of stumbled into it. We decided really quickly to use Zoom because we wanted people to be able to participate in the service and to do things live. And so it's been a huge learning curve as we've gone along, just particularly trying to get the sound right for our musicians. Yeah. And over the last 4 weeks or so, we've been using the church building for some elements of the service as well. So being able to put the band in there and service leaders and preachers, if they felt like they were able to come into the building. So we've had another learning curve of trying to get the sound and the visuals working again there.
Kind of thing, isn't it? So tell us, how do you? I mean, perhaps tell us how you initially did it, and then what majorly needed to change. How did you approach it?
Literally at the beginning, we just it was a very Heath Robinson setup. So in the first week, our worship leader had their mobile phone hanging by a string between them and the piano. That looked like a little gnome on top of the piano.
How could you improve on that though? That sounds like the ideal setup.
Well, it actually hasn't changed much since then. It's just, we've now got things like, a proper microphone, and just stuff like that has really helped us. For £40 for quite a decent microphone. So
are you running everything off a PA system, off one mobile phone? How are you actually streaming?
So on Zoom, we've allocated a Zoom host. Being a church, of course, there's a need for a rota. So we've got basically someone who hosts Zoom on the church account each week, but they're just on their own laptops, and they're the ones. I suppose if we were like TV producers or something, we'd do this properly, but each week we have a sort of running order which tells the person who's sharing the slides from their home, the worship leader from their home, the reader from their home, the intercessor from their home, the Zoom host, basically what to do when. And we try as much as we can to stick to that running order. But everyone's just doing it from home with essentially with the equipment that they've got.
So you do it as a Zoom meeting, and you switch between, and then the whoever's hosting it, whoever's on the rota to host it, will switch the view, will pin whichever video is their turn.
Yeah, so they spotlight whichever contributor is contributing. And then we've played around with different things over the course of time. We use breakout rooms quite a lot in Zoom. So either to say hello to people at the start of the service, or break out into discussion groups after the sermon, or break out into small groups to share the piece together. So it's usually a breakout group at some point. We use the chat quite a lot for contributions during the service, and if like in the intercessions, if there are different people that we'd like to pray for, then put their names in the chat. We use polls quite a lot, so just to get a bit of a feel for where people are at.
Are you broadcasting to Facebook as well, or how are you doing it?
We decided not to, so we're not streaming live in that sense, but we do record the Zoom service, and then with a little bit of editing, then post it on our Facebook page later on, just so that anyone who doesn't want to be seen on video, any sort of for safeguarding reasons or whatever, we can make sure that people don't appear when they don't want to, basically.
Yeah. So the thing I like about your solution is I had no idea that was how you were doing it, but the thing I like about it is that it's probably the most involving that I've heard, because very often it seems like we're guilty of this, the diocese is we produce the kind of content and we stream it out, but it's one direction, whereas the nice thing about doing it on Zoom, although I know other churches are doing that as well, is that you're inviting discussion and it's involving.
Yeah, I think
that's a core thing that you've been aiming for.
Yeah, and for me, it was really important that that everyone who would normally be able to contribute could contribute. That we could still have discussion. Yeah, I love the bubble in the morning, the babble sort of as people are arriving, and they're like, "Oh, hello," and there was a classic moment fairly on when Mary appeared in her dressing gown, and someone went, "Oh, Mary, you're still wearing your dressing gown," and she was very proud. I was like, "Yes, I am." She like totally pulled it off. It was great.
Style it out.
Yep.
Intimacy is part of how we're designed, just style it out. It's cool.
That's right.
That's cool.
But also I wanted, I suppose my theology is, church is not an event. It's something that happens when we gather together. I wanted it to be real. So, our worship leaders have been absolutely fantastic. They've moved from kind of having a band and being able to work in that way to really kind of just singing and playing by themselves or with their own families.
Would you have them as a distributed band, or would you have them as a band within one location and then you cut?
No, Zoom sort of audio capability isn't good enough for bands to be in, or for contributors to one thing to be in multiple locations. So it's fine to have the readers in one place, the intercessors in one place, and so on. But for a band, it has had to be like a family together.
Yeah.
But again, we decided that actually that being real, even when it doesn't work particularly well, is a more important value than
looking good.
Yeah.
No, that's really good, and I think that's particularly interesting in terms of the long story of what's happening with the church. Without going too much into that, but we've got this kind of faced with the temptation of going down quite a consumer avenue, and how we exist, how we kind of keep connecting in a new way, but without leaving people behind. I mean,
that's right. Yeah, we put a lot of effort in at the beginning to try and get as many people onto Zoom as we could, and people have stayed, and that that's been really encouraging to see that people do feel like they're properly gathering and seeing people and worshipping together. And there are people that can't, and we always produce a service sheet with the sermon in it, and that's distributed around to everyone.
I was going to ask you about the sort of accessibility of it as well, because you've you inspired us to use Capwing better. That software has been really helpful, but that's only really good for content you've already produced. For live content, it's a different matter, and especially doing it the way that you're doing it, you can't kind of live auto translate stuff, can you?
No, you can't. So what we've encouraged people to use is there's an app called Live Transcribe. So if people are struggling to follow the verbal content, then what people have found is if they say are on their laptop, they can put their phone up with that Live Transcribe app, and that's actually pretty accurate for.
That's great. Well, they just hold it up near their screen.
Well, just balance it up by the screen, and it sort of looks like you're getting subtitles basically, and that's
that is genius. What's it called? Live Transcribe.
Live Transcribe.
Is it free or is it paid?
Yeah, it's free.
Amazing. That's genius.
So that's That's the closest it's been. We did have an interesting incident on Pentecost when we got various people who could speak different languages to say the praises of God in their own language, and Live Transcribe didn't handle the multiple languages particularly well, so there was a bit of a rude incident. But generally, in English, it's been very successful.
Yeah, we've had some, when I've been translating the stuff for our YouTube videos, we've had some auto-translated things that have been extremely controversial that Bishop Rachel allegedly said, and I've been like, oh, yeah, let's edit that.
Oh, well, well done for filtering those out, Sam. I can imagine the temptation was high.
Screenshot straight to the Daily Mail.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it's been this whole time. We've used different things as well, like Menti, MENTI. I don't know if you've come across that, but that's been a good way of capturing kind of deeper thoughts from people. So the chat doesn't, obviously it's sort of coming and going and quite difficult to keep up with if it's moving quickly. But tools like Menti have enabled us to capture contributions and show them as sort of word clouds or speech bubbles, that sort of thing.
Wow. What, during the thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
I haven't got one immediately to hand, but otherwise I could show you.
I mean, it sounds like from the way that you describe the way that you've solved this or are in the process of solving it, from the way you described it, it sounds like you're not very kit heavy. I mean, you showed me a microphone earlier on, but yep. I suspect that's just for improving the quality of the worship feed.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's been zero purchase really. We did buy an iPad for one of the retirement communities to kind of help them grow in confidence of being able to maybe buy an iPad or a tablet themselves and use Zoom. But other than that, we've had zero outlay in terms of kit for people's homes.
That's fascinating. I hadn't predicted any of this. It's been quite nice to hear from. So I heard from Nick Davies and Chris Witham, and now you, and you've all approached it in very different ways, and it's been really interesting to learn from all three of you. Actually, I'm kind of tempted to keep going and just keep interviewing people and do 10 or 20 people, because there are so many solutions to this that are kind of context specific and context correct. But I think I'll draw the line at interviewing 3 people because. So information.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It could keep going. It's been fascinating on the on Vicar Facebook groups and things. Everyone, exchanging different ideas for doing things.
If you had let's say a rural parish come to you and just say, we need to live stream this group or this service, how would you answer that question? What's the most important things you'd flag up to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all depends on how technically able the majority of your congregation are, because we have been fortunate in that we've been able to get sort of 95% probably of the congregation onto Zoom, but I wouldn't have chosen that solution if that hadn't been possible for the majority of people. I mean, any mode of church excludes people and includes people. And
do you use the phone dial-ins?
Yeah.
Right. Because that's exactly why we used Zoom for the Maundy Thursday thing at the beginning of lockdown. Yeah. All Easter stuff, we used Zoom because we were able to hook it up to Facebook.
Yeah.
And we used Restream to schedule stuff, but actually Zoom was the only way to enable people to dial in.
Yeah.
From a UK landline,
Yeah. So we have got people who've consistently done that right through. So I suppose I would say do a kind of audit of of your congregation, and then there are multiple options. I know some places have just chosen to get their own little local radio frequency and done little broadcasts that way.
Really?
Other people have done dial-in services.
That's amazing.
I suppose we have had the outlay of the Zoom license, so
Yeah.
but that's been £15.
You have a webinar thing, or have you just got the?
We've just had the £15 a month one, with the exception of the Easter services where we did go over 100 devices.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. But that's been fine, and having that license and a consistent place for people to come and meet means all the daily prayer happens in that same Zoom room. All of the small groups meet in that Zoom room. The kids, the kids in the youth group meet in that Zoom room. So everyone's always using the same thing. We use it for the church quizzes, tea parties, Mothers Union. Everything happens in that room. So for 15 quid a month, it's worth it.
Are you getting a bit sick of Zoom?
In the current situation, it enables everyone to stay together, and that's been really important. So
good answer.
So it's painful, but I think it's it's good, and we've still got the vast majority of people joining the service every Sunday morning. So so it clearly is working. So we've got now obviously the opportunity of people being in building and online. So now we've been working on our capability to get that interaction within the building as well. And so that is now causing a cost because we've invested in 2 cameras.
Tell us about that. So how did you doing that?
Yeah, so we've got, let me just share my screen quickly. So I don't know if you can sort of see at the back of the church, we've got one sort of tiny sort of pan and tilt camera, and now we've invested in this camera which will let us zoom right in. So on that screen there, although it's a bit fuzzy, that's the sort of zoom in version. So from the setup at the back, we can see the worship team at the front there.
That's great. And so how do you and are you connecting that to Zoom?
Yeah,
through a laptop.
So on the big screen, when we've got congregation in, they're seeing the Zoom screen up there. So what you would normally see when you're on Zoom, and we're feeding the audio from the church into that, and outputting the audio from the Zoom into the loudspeakers in church. So still trying to get a good combination of interaction between the two.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And are you using any, what software are you using to kind of mix all those feeds together? Because you've got 2 different cameras.
Just using Pro Presenter.
Okay. And so are they like USB into a laptop, or is it networked, or?
We're using hard connections.
Yeah.
So the outlay on the cameras and the equipment to do that so far has been about 2,500.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. Cool. Joe, thank you so much for your time.
It's been great to chat, Sam.
Yeah, it's really nice to talk, and thank you for telling us a bit and showing us a bit about how you've done what you've done. And I hope we will continue to learn from you, and you from us, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just all the time picking up other people's stuff.
Exactly,
Can I use that? Can I use that?
Yeah. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Joe.
Okay, thanks, Sam.
Bless you.